Good morning, Dan and Amy. So the question is, with Rahm's withdrawal yesterday, is this going to be a new day in Chicago, or ultimately is it going to be the same old day with a new face? To answer that question, one of the candidates for mayor we've spoken with before, he is former Chicago public school boss, Paul Vallas, candidate for mayor, and he joins us now. Paul, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me.
So, to my question, how do you represent not just a new face, but a new day in Chicago?
Well, I think my whole approach has been to run governmental agencies not as a politician, but as a problem solver. When I took over the Chicago public schools, they had a massive deficit. And when I left the schools, they had about $1 billion in cash in cash balances and 13 bond rating upgrades. And as you remember, I'm sure Amy remembers, I took all the construction projects out of the Public Building Commission so that we could competitively bid them effectively. And we built 78 schools in 6 years. And I think we were paying half the per square footage cost, and that was being spent on other construction around the state, or for that matter, in other cities. So our whole approach toward the schools in those days was to take politics out of the schools and really focus on the kids. And I think that's why we achieved the results. And that's been the approach that I've taken in every single job I've had, whether it was taking over the schools in Philadelphia when the state took over, when those schools were in crisis, rebuilding schools in New Orleans after Katrina. So my approach has always been to be a problem solver and to run the schools as a problem solver, or run any governmental entity as a problem solver and not as a politician.
Do you think it's naive to be able to take the politics out of Chicago city government?
No. Well, first of all, you've got to be committed to doing that. I think people, use politics when they don't have ideas. A lot of times, the management of government is more about the managing of the message rather than the managing of programs themselves.
Yeah.
I've always tried to divorce politics from the practice of running the institutions that I've been responsible, while recognizing that we do live in a political environment, but.
Mm-hmm.
I've always felt that if you communicate to people what the needs are, what your vision is, and how you're going to work to achieve that vision, you can get you can not only get broad popular support, but you can also get broad political support. Yeah. And so I'm pretty confident, based on my history and what I've done in the past, that that I can minimize the damage that politics does to the process of providing quality governmental services. But you've got to be, you've got to have ideas. You have to have the means to run these governmental agencies, or whether it's the schools or whether it's the city, effectively. So I think a lot of times individuals use politics to compensate for what they lack in managerial skills.
Do you think that Rahm has picked his successor, and what do you want to say to men or women that might jump into the race now that he's out of it?
Well, my attitude is, has he picked his successor? This is Chicago, so you never know.
Right.
The whole process under which Rahm was more or less selected or ordained last time was certainly, a process that was really the establishment desiring a specific candidate as opposed to any credible challenges. But what I say to individuals who are thinking of entering the race right now is that if you didn't have the guts to run for mayor of Chicago when Rahm was in office, what will make the public believe that you have the guts to make the tough decisions that need to be made in order to move the city forward? So,
I think
all
that's
those
fair.
individuals who are going to jump in now, where were you when the going got tough, so to speak?
Well, speaking of that, is there anybody, if they get in, you'll rethink your candidacy? There's rumors. John Cass writes about the Bill Daley looking to get in. The rumors that Tony Preckwinkle is looking at it.
No, not at all. Look, Emanuel may not be running, but the reasons for my running still exist. I mean, the high crime, the poor schools, the lack of economic opportunities, the continuing financial crisis. My whole campaign has really been about offering fresh and realistic solutions for the future of Chicago. And from the onset, since April, and if you go to my website, you can see that, my whole approach has been to really offer solutions with great specificity, and I'm going to continue to do that. So at the end of the day, no one no one who enters this campaign will deter me from running, because this has got to be a campaign of ideas. And I think, look, I believe I'm the only candidate with a successful track record of running multi-billion-dollar government entities, avoiding the pay-to-play culture, and really, dealing with problems as a problem solver rather than a politician. And I'll compare my record with any candidate currently in the race, or for that matter, any of the candidates out there who might be contemplating entering the race right now.
Well,
so I'm in it to win it, and I'm in it to stay.
I spent a majority of my day yesterday telling people all about you, whether if I was at a tile outlet store, at the doctor's house, I was doctor's office, I should say. But because I've always felt that this is not about you. You really do care about the people. Your wife's a cop. Your sons are both police officers. And what's the website where people can go to learn more information about you?
The website is Paul G. Vallas at forallchicago.com. And if you go to the website, I have all my initiatives are out there for people to examine and make a decision for themselves as to whether or not they think I'm the most qualified.
Vallasforallchicago.com gets you there. Vallasforallchicago.com. Well, one quick question, though, Paul. So one of the criticisms of you, I would say, just constructive criticisms, not personal, but in terms of a political candidate, you're somebody who sounds like you'd be a great chief of staff, but are you a leader in these political times? The kind of frankly, bombastic oratory, the political machinations, the ability to generate resources to drive a message. Can you be that guy that you need to be, at least in part, to be successful politically?
Well, that's always the criticism. I've always had great confidence in the public, and my approach, whether it was in Chicago, Philadelphia, for that matter, New Orleans, has always been to really be honest and transparent and open with the public, and to maybe perhaps be more detailed or offer more specifics than politicians traditionally provide. Because I've always had confidence in the intelligence of people to really look at the facts and make sound decisions. And I don't think I've ever been proven wrong. So I've always been able to thrive in political environments because I think I've always been able to articulate a vision, and I've always been open and transparent with people. Amy remembers there was never a crisis in the Chicago Public Schools where I wasn't front and center the next day or that very day answering questions or explaining what I was going to do to resolve the crisis. So my approach has always been to communicate directly with people and then to let them make their judgments. And I think that's always insulated me from a lot of the political machinations that sometimes interfere with good quality managers. So I'm pretty confident that I'm going to be able to get my message out. People want a problem solver, not a politician, and I don't think it's going to be a question of can I raise enough money.
All right, bring on Bill Daley, bring on Tony Preckwinkle. Paul Vallas is staying. The website, vallasforallchicago.com. Paul, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much. Bye-bye.
And he